February 18, 1951. Penn Station, just before dawn. The CCNY Beavers step off the overnight train from Philadelphia. Another road win, another routine return. There are no banners, no cameras, just the echo of footsteps on concrete. They don't see the detectives at first, plain coats, unmarked hats. Waiting on the platform, Ed Warner, Ed Roman, Al Roth. Names called quietly. Hands guided, not grabbed. No shouting, no resistance, no explanations offered. Commuters pass without noticing. A train whistles somewhere below ground. This wasn't a loss that needed explaining. The scoreboard didn't matter anymore. What followed wasn't about missed shots or bad nights. It was about something that had been happening long before this train arrived. The champions of New York are led away in handcuffs, and the city game ends without an audience. After the war, New York wasn't just a place that played basketball. It was where basketball lived. On winter nights, the city flowed toward 8th Avenue, toward Madison Square Garden. The building wasn't an arena so much as a civic cathedral. Inside, smoke hung in the air. 18,000 people pressed close to the court. Every seat filled. Every game mattered. The National Invitation Tournament ruled the sport. The NCAA existed, but the Garden decided legitimacy. If you played here, you were real. Doubleheaders weren't special events. They were weekly rituals. 2 games, 4 teams, 1 city watching itself. Basketball belonged to New York because New York believed it did. City College of New York didn't fit the mold. It wasn't private, it wasn't wealthy, it didn't recruit nationally. CCNY was a commuter school. Students rode subways to class. Players went home after practice. The roster reflected the city itself. Jewish kids, black kids, sons of immigrants, and working-class families. In 1950, they did something no one had ever done, and no one will ever do again. They won the NIT, then they won the NCAA tournament, 10 days apart, same season. A public university conquered the sport's 2 crowns. The city didn't celebrate them like athletes. It celebrated them like proof. Proof that talent could come from anywhere. The city believed in this team because it wanted to believe in itself. The Garden looked clean from the floor seats, bright lights, polished wood, order. But beneath it, New York was already wired for gambling. Thousands of bookies operated openly across the city. Corner candy stores, back rooms, barbershops. Everyone knew where to place a bet. At the center was Harry Gross, a gambling empire pulling in millions each year, protected by police, insulated by politicians. Bribes weren't hidden, they were budgeted. This wasn't a shadow economy, it was infrastructure. Inside Madison Square Garden, the line between sport and betting barely existed. Bookmakers sat in the stands. Odds passed hand to hand. Players saw it, coaches knew it, no one pretended otherwise. Gambling wasn't an intrusion, it was part of the building. The innovation that made everything possible was simple: the point spread. Instead of betting on who would win, gamblers bet on the margin. Win by more than expected, you cover. Win by less, you don't. That distinction changed everything. Throwing a game felt like betrayal. Shaving points felt like control. Players didn't have to lose. They didn't even have to play badly. They could still win, still celebrate, still walk off the court as heroes. They just had to miss a shot. Arrive late on defense, let the clock bleed. That psychological loophole mattered more than money. It allowed players to believe they weren't criminals, just participants. The system didn't require players to lose, only to cooperate. The first contact didn't happen in alleys or back rooms. It happened in the summer. When the season ended, players needed jobs, so they went north, to the Catskills. Resort hotels hired them as waiters and bellhops. Officially, they carried trays. Unofficially, they were the entertainment. Night after night, players ran informal games for guests. No uniforms, no referees, just cash prizes slipped across tables after dinner. The gamblers weren't strangers. They were friendly. They tipped well. They remembered names. Nothing was asked at first. No conditions. Just generosity. Trust came before money. Money came before obligation. Salvatore Sollazzo understood this better than anyone. He wasn't loud. He didn't threaten. He financed. Sollazzo rarely approached players himself. He didn't need to. He used middlemen, former players, men who spoke the language of locker rooms. Eddie Gard was one of them. He knew who was struggling, who had a family pressure, who already felt underpaid. Gard framed it as business, not fixing, not cheating. Everyone was doing it, he said. Everyone was already getting paid. Why should you be the only one playing for free? By the time the envelopes appeared, the line had already moved. The decision felt smaller than it was. By the time money appeared, it didn't feel criminal. It felt inevitable. What made point shaving work was how little it looked like cheating. There were no dramatic throws, no obvious collapses, just a missed rebound, a half-second late on a rotation, a pass thrown slightly too high. Mistakes every player makes, every game. The skill wasn't losing, it was hiding. Players had to stay believable, to cheat without alarming coaches, teammates, or crowds. They learned when to miss and when to recover, how to slow a possession without stopping it, how to let the margin drift without snapping. It required discipline, awareness, control. For a while, it worked. Then came the night it didn't. Long Island University versus Western Kentucky. The gamblers wanted a controlled result. The players tried to deliver one, but basketball isn't arithmetic. Momentum ignores intention. Shots fell too fast. Stops came too easily. The spread slipped out of reach. In the final minutes, the game turned chaotic. Points piled up. Control vanished. The fix became a slot machine. Unpredictable, violent, exposed. It was the flaw at the center of the scheme. No one could manage outcomes forever. Once players tried to control outcomes, outcomes began controlling them. Junius Kellogg didn't look like a disruptor. He was a center at Manhattan College, 6'8", quiet, serious, focused on earning his degree. When the offer came, it wasn't dramatic. A conversation, an envelope, $1,000 to shave points, miss a rebound, be late once or twice. Nothing that would change the outcome. Kellogg understood what was being asked, and what it would turn into. He said no. Then he did something no one expected. He told his coach. The coach told the district attorney. The response was careful, deliberate. Kellogg agreed to meet again, this time wearing a wire. In a bar near campus, Henry Hank Pop explained everything. Who paid, how it worked, which games mattered. Every detail recorded. No confrontation, no warning. After the next game, arrests began. Quietly, methodically. The system collapsed not because it was sloppy, but because one person refused to participate. The arrests at Penn Station didn't stay quiet for long. By mid-morning, the names were everywhere. Ed Warner, Ed Roman, Al Roth, City College, the champions. Newspapers printed extra editions. Radios cut into regular programming. The story pushed everything else aside. This wasn't a rumor anymore. It was confirmation. Fans who had packed the Garden weeks earlier now stared at headlines in disbelief. The same players who symbolized the city's pride were suddenly its shame. The shock didn't come from the crime alone. It came from who was involved. Then the list started growing. Long Island University, New York University, Manhattan College, Bradley, Kentucky, Toledo. Arrests and confessions spread state by state, game by game. Investigators counted the damage. 86 games compromised. 35 players implicated. What had looked like a local betrayal revealed a national pattern. The same pressures, the same excuses, the same outcome. What began as a city scandal became a national one. The courtroom was where the story finally slowed down. Judge Saul Strite didn't treat the cases as isolated crimes. He treated them as evidence. From the bench, he condemned the entire ecosystem: the gamblers, the schools, the administrators who cashed checks while preaching amateurism. But condemnation didn't translate evenly into punishment. The fixers went to prison, years behind bars. The architects removed from the game. The players faced something different: suspended sentences, probation, public disgrace, and something harsher than jail: lifetime bans from professional basketball. Careers ended before they began. The damage didn't stop with the verdicts. City College never recovered. Banned from Madison Square Garden, the program was stripped of its stage. Recruiting dried up. Ambition followed. CCNY was pushed down permanently, from national champion to Division III, where it remained. Long Island University shut its athletic programs down entirely. 6 years of silence. A public admission that the city game was broken. Power shifted away from New York. Tournaments moved to campuses. Control centralized. Madison Square Garden, once the center of college basketball, lost the sport altogether. The building survived. The culture didn't. The city moved on. The game did too. But it was never the same. When the trials ended, Judge Saul Strite made something clear. The players were guilty, but they weren't the architects. They sat at the bottom of a pyramid built by others. Above them were the fixers and gamblers, financing outcomes and insulating themselves from risk. Above them, police officers who took bribes to look away. Politicians who protected the system. Arena executives who counted ticket sales. And above all of it, institutions that called it amateurism. A fiction that demanded purity from players while everyone else got paid. The scandal didn't expose greed in young men. It exposed a business that pretended it wasn't one. That's why this story still matters. Because the money never left. It just changed shape. Because the incentives remain, and the pressure still flows downhill. The scandal didn't destroy college basketball. It revealed what it already was. Stories like this don't live on the court. They live in the spaces no one wants to talk about. The locker rooms, the back rooms, the ledgers nobody was supposed to see. That's what Locker Room Ledger is about. We tell the stories behind the scandals, the deals, the pressure, the moments where careers turn sideways. If you want more of this, hit subscribe. New stories every week. And if this one stuck with you, watch our deep dive on the cornerback who built a drug empire while playing for the LA Rams, or the Pro Bowl running back who became a kingpin after football. Different eras, same temptations. This is Locker Room Ledger.